Most people don't believe in God because they've examined the evidence. They believe because they were taught to, before they learned how to think. Now here's the uncomfortable part. One of the greatest philosophers in history didn't try to destroy belief in God. He didn't mock it. He didn't replace it with science. Instead, he asked a far more dangerous question. How do you actually know? This question came from David Hume, a man whose ideas quietly shook the foundations of religion, not by shouting, but by calmly removing what people assumed was solid ground. Tonight, we explore David Hume's take on Does God Exist? And by the end of this video, you may still believe in God, but you'll never believe for the same reasons again. Part 1. Who was David Hume really? David Hume wasn't an atheist activist. He wasn't a rebel trying to burn churches. He lived in the 18th century, when questioning religion could cost you your reputation, career, and safety. Hume was something far more dangerous. He was honest. He believed that if a belief matters enough to guide your life, then it matters enough to be questioned. Hume's central concern wasn't God. It was human knowledge. He asked, how do we know anything? What counts as evidence? Where do certainty and belief actually come from? And once he applied those questions to religion, things got uncomfortable. Part 2. The problem with proving God. Let's start with the most common argument for God's existence. Everything must have a cause. Sounds logical, until Hume steps in. Hume pointed out something radical for his time. We never observe causes. We only observe sequences. Fire comes before heat. The sun rises after night. A prayer is followed by an outcome. But causation itself? That's something the human mind assumes, not something it directly sees. So when people say, the universe must have a cause, therefore God, Hume responds quietly, you've extended a habit of thought beyond what experience allows. In other words, just because cause and effect works inside the universe does not mean it automatically applies to the universe itself. That leap from experience to metaphysics is not proof, it's inference. And inference is not certainty. Part 3. The design argument. One of the strongest arguments for God has always been design. Look at the universe, the laws, the order, the complexity. Surely this implies an intelligent designer. Hume didn't dismiss this outright. Instead, he asked a devastating question. What kind of designer? If the universe resembles a machine, then maybe its creator resembles a mechanic. But mechanics make mistakes, improve designs over time, learn through trial and error. So if the universe has flaws, disease, suffering, chaos, does that imply an imperfect creator? Or multiple creators? Or a creator who abandoned the project? Hume's point wasn't that God doesn't exist. His point was this: the universe does not tell us as much about its creator as people think it does. Design alone cannot give you a perfect God, a benevolent God, a moral God, or even a single God. It gives you uncertainty. Part 4. The problem of evil. Now comes the hardest question. If God is all-powerful, all-knowing, all-good, why does suffering exist? Hume didn't scream this question. He asked it calmly, and that made it worse. He pointed out that suffering is not rare, it's not accidental, it's systematic. Natural disasters, disease, predation, pain built directly into biology. So Hume asked, is God willing to prevent evil, but not able? Then he is not all-powerful. Is he able but not willing? Then he is not all good. Is he both able and willing? Then why does evil exist at all? Hume didn't offer an answer. He simply refused to accept contradictions dressed as mystery. Part 5. Miracles and the burden of proof. Now let's talk about miracles. Hume's argument here is famous and devastating. He said, when someone claims a miracle occurred, you must weigh two possibilities. The laws of nature were violated. The witness is mistaken, deceived, or lying. Hume argued that it will always be more rational to doubt the testimony than to overturn the laws of nature. Why? Because human error is common, exaggeration is common, religious bias is common, and miracles always conveniently support existing beliefs. So Hume concluded, no testimony is sufficient to establish a miracle unless the falsehood of that testimony would be more miraculous than the event it describes. That single sentence quietly dismantled centuries of unquestioned belief. Part 6. Faith versus Reason, where Hume drew the line. Here's where many people misunderstand Hume. He did not say, God does not exist, religion is useless, faith is stupid. What he said was far more precise. Reason cannot prove God. Faith may still exist, but it cannot pretend to be evidence-based. Hume believed belief often comes from emotion, tradition, fear, hope, social conditioning, not logic. And once you see that, you're forced to choose. Do you believe because it comforts you, or because it convinces you? Both are human, but only one is honest. Part 7. Why David Hume still matters today. Here's why Hume is more relevant now than ever. We live in an age of loud opinions, absolute certainty, tribal belief systems. Everyone claims truth. Few examine it. Hume teaches us something rare, intellectual humility. He reminds us that not knowing is not weakness, doubt is not failure, and questioning belief is not the same as rejecting meaning. You don't need to destroy faith to think clearly. You just need to stop lying to yourself about why you believe. Final reflection. The question you must answer. David Hume never answered the question, does God exist? Instead, he handed it back to you and asked something deeper. What would count as evidence? Until you answer that, every belief, religious or not, rests on assumption. So here's the real question. If God exists, would he fear honest inquiry? Or would truth withstand it? If this made you think, not react, write "I questioned" in the comments. Not to debate, not to prove anything, just to acknowledge that thinking deeply is the beginning of wisdom. Subscribe to WealthWise for ideas that don't tell you what to think, but teach you how to think, because clarity is wealth.